I don't think I share an enormous amount on social media, but radio is difficult. You can't fake it. You can't fake radio. Television is my happy space, right? Television is my happy space. I love Carte Blanche. I love the team there. I feel that I know what that environment looks like. I was full-time on Carte Blanche for, over 11 years. I don't think there's a whole lot more outside of that, purely because what I do is my passion. I'm a current affairs and news junkie. I love politics, I love history, and whatever is unfolding as the big story of the moment often obviously has significance for this time, but these are the events that shape a nation's direction. Oh, I'm very passionate about my role as a father. It's possibly the most important job that I have. I have a son.
Hello everyone and welcome to our Living Legends feature. Our next guest is, I think, a broadcasting legend, Bongani Bingwa. You guys have seen it on our screens for decades. My name is Sandy Mbele and we have the beautiful Hilton Hotel. And we're just going to be catching up on the man on what's life outside the radio, outside the airwaves, and how you do and what you do, without, 702, I guess. So Bongani, thank you so much for joining us. How are
Thank
you
you
doing?
for having me. Doing well.
Yeah.
I'm nervous. I'm not usually on
I
this side.
I can tell you.
I'm
like
not usually on this side.
he's rubbing his arms like
That's
the man.
courage.
So I wanted to know, I think a lot of people, especially we have a lot of strong media personalities, especially in broadcasting and in TV. People really want to know, who are you outside of that? Who's Bongani?
I don't think there's a whole lot more outside of that, purely because what I do is my passion. I'm a current affairs and news junkie. I love politics, I love history, and whatever is unfolding as the big story of the moment often obviously has significance for this time, but these are the events that shape a nation's direction. And so even if it is a big story for today, it may yet have resonance sometime in the future, and people may mark a certain point and say, that was pivotal, that was where things turned around. And so it is my passion. If I wasn't behind the microphone, I'd be involved in some way or another with the story. So what I do is my work, but my work is my passion.
Yeah, and it's brilliant because I think people can tell, but your listeners can definitely tell on your show on 702. And I think for many of your listeners, because you guys do a daily roundup of the pressing matters of societal issues, what do you walk away on? What has been hovering you lately? Societal issues that still stays with you? Because we have a lot. There's a lot happening in South Africa daily.
I think we try not to take ourselves that seriously. So I think obviously we care about the big stories. We care about doing the accountability interviews. But what we're trying to do is help people make sense of their world. And that's why our conversations are mixed. We laugh a lot. We've got a great team spirit on the show. Yes, of course, I'm the main anchor, but the business anchor is just as involved. The sports anchor is as big a part of the show as well, right down to the traffic and all of our contributors. And so, yes, we'll give you the big stories of the day, but we're also keen to have those water cooler conversations. And what I mean by that is, when somebody's at the office, did you hear on 702 Breakfast this morning, they were talking about, and people will remember random things. When people stop me in the mall, they don't say, oh gosh, you really put it to the minister. They expect those things, but what they talk about is they'll say, oh my gosh, the other day you were speaking about Dolly Parton and the origin of I Will Always Love You. I didn't know that. Or it'll be a random fact, something interesting. We try and make sense of people's world, but hopefully we bring some color and texture too.
Yeah, and I think with your show specifically, I don't think you have kind of shied away from all the hard topics or the topics that people are uncomfortable with, especially we're living in woke culture, you know. A lot of personalities are very scared to like share their opinions openly.
Yeah.
And on your platform, you guys are more than welcome to do that.
Oh, absolutely. People listen because they want to know what I think. They want to disagree with me. They want to agree with me. And there's conversations that people want to listen to. So they'll want to hear an expert outline the energy crisis and what the future looks like. But at the same time, they want conversations that are about themselves. So if it's about what to do with children during COVID, do you take them to school? Do you not take them to school? People want to talk about their own experiences. And so it's not just a space where, you know, it's hoity-toity and it's fancy language, fancy speak, but it's a coming together. It's a conversation.
In these many morning shows, what would you say sets you guys apart from all the others?
I think it's that. I think it's the fact that we try to make sense of your world. So if there's things you know from sports, from business, from current affairs, from breaking news, we bring you the total package. But I'm not standing alone. Our business guy, Arabile Gumede, is as good as you get in the field. Our sports anchor, Cindy Paluta, is as good as you get in the field. We've got international contributors who give you a sense of what's going on in the rest of the world. So there'll be stories there that have a rich texture and a rich color. People will tune in just for that feature. When we talk about viral content, again, we do it in an interesting and in a fun way, but in a way that pulls our listeners in. And so people feel like they've got these friends in the morning, right? And they feel like the show is their friend. But beyond that, I think certainly the biggest thing that sets us apart is our commitment to walk the talk with our listeners. And that means we work behind the scenes to help make a difference in the lives of our listeners. And there's so many examples. There was a tragic story recently of a family whose daughter was studying in China and she fell off a building and there were no explanations. And they were told by the Chinese authorities, well, we'll just cremate her here. And the family said, no, what do you mean? You know, we helped through a buddy campaign to bring the remains of this young woman back.
I was shocked at how much it cost.
To repatriate her body.
It's shocking.
Right?
Yeah.
So we go from a conversation about let's help this family bring their daughter's remains back to the country to explaining why does it cost so much to repatriate a body from overseas. So now if you're a family with a child who's somewhere around the world or a loved one around the world, that's something that you are going to compute. But our whole community comes together for things like that. We have people calling in and saying, listen, we may not provide money, but as soon as the body lands, we'll help with the funeral expenses. People were donating 10 Rand, 100 Rand, 500 Rand, 30,000 Rand. That's just that sense of community that we have. Or it'll be a story about a creche in Alex where a child got scalded with hot water and the school didn't want to take any accountability. We got that school closed because it wasn't even registered and the community suddenly is aware of the problems there. So there's a lot of shows that may entertain you, that may make you laugh, that might even play music that will make you dance, but I'm not sure everyone makes a difference in the lives of their community in the way that we try to.
Yeah, and one more thing, you returned to Carte Blanche, so give us a reason of why you went back.
Television is my happy space, right? Television is my happy space. I love Carte Blanche, I love the team there. I feel that I know what that environment looks like. I was full-time on Carte Blanche for, over 11 years. Whilst, of course, my focus is on my radio show, I help out, I do one or two interesting stories here and there. I'm not full-time with them. My focus is on the radio show. But certainly it's an arrangement that's working well for now and I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, and I think you're also enjoying making plans because this man has set himself a goal. In 3 years' time, you're turning 50.
Yes.
And I don't understand why you're adding pressure to yourself of having things to do before you reach 50. Why?
Because So what I've said is, you don't suddenly wake up and, oh, okay, today I'm 50, this means. I want to meet 50 there. I want to meet it ready. I want to prepare for it. The person that I want to be when I'm 50 isn't going to wake up that morning and suddenly be those things. I'm working towards those goals so that when I turn 50, who I have set myself up to be is who I've been working towards until now.
So
between now and then.
Yeah, so what are those goals? What are you doing? What are you planning?
Gosh, I think it's a mind shift, right? It's a mind shift around who I want to be as a parent, who I want to be as a broadcaster, who I want to be as a friend. It's those kinds of things that suddenly make me, I don't know, take stock. I think a lot of people wait until the big milestone, and then you sort of figure out what it means, as opposed to you saying, actually, we're going to meet each other at that point.
And you are studying. Can you tell us what are you studying exactly?
Gosh, okay, you prepared. I told you that. So I've done something that I've never done before. I mean, like I said to you, my passions are history, they're politics, they're current affairs. I'm doing business studies.
Wow,
something completely different, something completely out of my comfort zone. And so far, I'm surprised by how much I've been enjoying it.
Oh, really? Are you like an academics book person? Are you like book smart? Or you?
I don't think so. I don't think I'm maybe I should ask what you mean by book smart.
Like book smart is like people who enjoy studying. They enjoy learning.
No.
Okay.
Not a nerd.
Yeah.
I'm not a nerd. I'm not a policy wonk. I won't sit down and wrestle about the granular details of a particular question. I'm much more of a broad picture. Where is it going? What does it mean? What is its significance? And so to push myself, I mean, one of the modules I'm going to be doing is a course on stats. I've never done that in my entire life. I think the last time I did anything mathematical was in high school, and that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I like pushing myself. I like telling myself I will do the thing that is uncomfortable, that perhaps people don't expect me to do.
Yeah, and did you find any sort of uncomfortability, should I say, during the pandemic? Because a lot of things you can learn. It's also another phase of people's lives where they see themselves in a different way, or they see their careers going somewhere else, or they want to change their family or how their father or daughter. Like, how were you in the pandemic realm, and how did you see any changes in yourself?
Well, the pandemic is still with us.
Yeah.
You're right. We're still in it, and there's no indication when we're going to get out of it. I think the biggest thing has been to pause. The biggest thing has been to pause, catch your breath, see what's going on around you, see the possibilities. I would never have contemplated studying outside of the pandemic. I can do so now from the comfort of my own home. I do classes online, so that's completely changed. And I think that the pandemic and its impact, particularly because of lockdown, has obviously opened up opportunities and new ways of doing things that simply weren't possible before. I can do 3 or 4 things in a single day in ways I could never. I have interviewed people. I spoke to Richard Branson not too long ago from the comfort of my own home. I would never have been able to even think about such a thing, before the pandemic. I can do interviews with people in America in a different time zone, in Asia, in Australia in a different time zone, versus, they have to be on the show live at 6 o'clock in the morning, or whenever, we would obviously be able to slot them. So things like that. I mean, it's just a new way of working, a new way of living, and I think it's presented some fantastic opportunities. But of course, I'm fully aware of how, painful it has been for a lot of people at the same time.
Yeah, and you've spoke this a lot about your family life and your children, your daughters. You have one right now who's becoming a young woman. So how have you seen your role as a father change?
Oh, I'm very passionate about my role as a father. It's possibly the most important job that I have. I have a son who is independent, he's working, he's in the industry, he's a video editor, so he's fine in that sense. My daughter is 12. She's the apple of my eye. She has me around her little finger. All the cliches you can imagine or think
Daddy's
of.
little girl.
That one.
Yeah.
I think it's important. I think it's a confusing time. It's a time in her life where she is finding herself. And again, this time has allowed me to be present in a way I necessarily might not have. We no longer have things like after care at school. In fact, really, you want to get them out of there as quickly as possible. And what that means is that suddenly things that you might have assumed the teachers would do are suddenly my responsibility. I'm leaving here to go do homework.
I mean, but like, well, actually, I was about to say, I'm like, the education of kids today is completely different from every generation.
Yeah.
So, are you that dad who's like, he looks at the textbook and he's like, okay, what is going on here?
Yes and no. I think obviously she's still 12, so she's in the earlier grades. I suspect it'll get tougher as as she goes ahead. But you're right. I mean, the kids are learning completely different things. There's things she's learning now that I learned much later on. In fact, the other day she was doing something in history and they were learning about primary and secondary sources. I learned that at university. She's in standard 4, grade 6. So there is that sense of, okay, for now I'm keeping up, but I don't know for how much longer.
Very true. And I think, do you find a responsibility to share a lot about your personal life to your listeners or on social media?
I don't think I share an enormous amount on social media, but radio is difficult. You can't fake it. You can't fake radio. I've been on 702 Breakfast now this is my 4th year. And so with the team spirit we have built, we have conversations that sometimes make us forget we're on air, because you're talking about real things. Listeners phone in and they tell us about their problems. They tell us about their triumphs, their heartaches, moments of humor in their lives, moments of irony in their lives. The other day we were having a conversation about whether or not you have received messages from the other side. And people share everything. They put everything on the table. I can't then, as the host, sit there and try and be above it all. Because, I mean, ultimately, what are we doing every morning? Telling you what's going on in the world, right?
Yeah.
We're not the only show that does that. But it's only on 702 Breakfast that you get to hear about me. So I can't hide that. I can't leave that at home. I mean, obviously, hopefully, it's not in a self-indulgent way. I don't think it's about me. But it's a relationship. People put everything of theirs on the table, complete strangers. Tell us about when they lost a parent, when they got divorced, when they might have been assaulted. They share their heart and souls. I've got to do the same.
So I want to ask you a personal question.
Oh dear.
So if I went to your house and you were hosting dinner, who would I find and what am I eating?
What are you eating? You'd have to have an adventurous palate. You'd find friends. I'm not somebody who is... I don't have celebrity friends.
Okay.
So you won't find people who are famous in that sense. You'll find people who are accomplished. You'll find people who are at the top of their game in terms of their chosen careers, whether it's people who are doctors, people who are international financiers, people who are investment bankers, lawyers, scientists. That's the caliber of people I surround myself with. If I feel that I'm the smartest person in the room, then that's always the wrong room for me. I'm with people who will stretch me, who will challenge me, who will inform me, who will make me see it from a different perspective. So a lot of my friends are people who are really at the top of their game. They keep me on my toes. Nobody gives a rat's tail what I do. In fact, quite often I feel like I'm the lucky one to be in the room. So that's who you would find. I love cooking. I think I'm rather good at it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it depends. I play around, I experiment a lot. One of my things right now is making African food a thing. Because I think, people will boast about eating things that we can barely pronounce that are from France or are from Thailand. But we don't celebrate enough of African cuisine. And I think that's something that I care a lot about at the moment. So it depends on what phase I'm in.
Oh, all right, and it's very good because I think people who follow you on Instagram, they can see that because you do. I don't know, inspiration is from Masterchef because your plating skills.
My friends often say at Bongani's house, they don't dish, they plate.
And it shows. It really does look good. And I think with a lot of with that personal question as well is that with Pride Month, right? I think a lot of people have seen your journey as well with your partner, and I think a lot of people would ask is there a point where should we be in 2021 where we ask people about their sexualities and how that affects them in their workplace or whatever that kind of question is?
I think it's rather like the people who don't see color, right? I mean, isn't it ultimately the same thing? Sure, we'd all love to live in a world in which we don't, but color is there. I think orientation means something in terms of people's experiences, in terms of how people are marginalized. People are killed in this country for being queer, right? And so when we then move to a place where we say, we shouldn't have to talk about it. Well, who speaks for those people who are unheard, whose voices are suppressed? But those of us who are lucky enough to be visible in a positive way that can make someone feel like, oh, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah. And I would ask you personally again, what series are you watching?
I've started watching Dear White People.
What?
I've started watching Dear White. So I can't commit. I watched something and halfway I started watching Handmaid's Tale the other day and it just got too dark for me. It just, it got too dark.
Or did you pause at season 1 or season 2?
Yeah, no, I haven't finished season 1. So I watch different things. I watch a lot of actuality stuff. I watch a lot of news. I started watching High on the Hog, and maybe that's also the other thing that sort of clicked my mind about African food. Oh. And that made me think, oh, hang on, he's right. We don't make our cuisine.
We don't celebrate it, I said it. Yeah, we don't celebrate it enough.
Never mind celebrate it. We don't think of it as something fancy. Right? But who's going to do it if we don't?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what is next for you?
In what sense?
Career-wise? And your goals for until you're 50. Like, are you going to be very committed? Are you setting yourself a very...
Now it's on camera.
Yeah. Then we'll roll back, fast forward.
Look, it's always a difficult question because it sometimes suggests that there's something bigger. The next thing suggests that one isn't settled where they are. And my answer to that question at this time in my career would be, so let me take you back to 15 years ago. I was the overnight newsreader at 702. The guy who was hosting the 702 breakfast show was John Robbie, absolute legend. But I was the guy who, when John arrived at 3 o'clock in the morning and needed anything, I dropped every piece of paper, whatever I was doing, to obviously assist, and it was a privilege to do so. I learned an incredible amount from him. That's who I was 15 years ago. If you had told me I would one day be sitting in his seat, I would have pinched myself. If you had told me 15 years ago I would have been a presenter journalist on Carte Blanche, I would have pinched my... So whenever someone says then, what is the next thing for you? Mm-hmm. Sometimes I feel, do you know what I'm doing? Do you know what it took to get here? Do you know what I mean? But certainly one of my ambitions will be to write. to write something, and I'm working on that, and watch the space.
Oh, thank you so much, Bongani, for your time.
Thank you. So I can't do this in the mornings, but my payoff line at night used to be, "Ubusuku benzolo." Good night.